Asha Shabbat. May peace, serenity, and prosperity be multiplied unto you all. Kalala Yahweh Ba Shema Mashiach Yahweh Barakatam Tawarwa Ba Halwaya. Shema Yashabala Yahweh Alahaya Nawa Aka. The Bar Mashpaka. All right. We got a wicked, quote unquote, pastor who is twisting up the scriptures to the congregation of whatever ministry or church he is leading. Mashpaka. This is why you got to come out of these churches. This is why you have to come out of these churches. Right? Because the word is getting twisted up. And everybody in these churches aren't reading their Bibles with true understanding. They're not reading the Bibles with true understanding. Whatever Bible they have some defiled translation. They're not reading it from the KJV. They're reading it from all these other different translations that are the crafty works of Hashatan. And on top of that, most of them aren't even reading thoroughly. They have not had their understanding open by Yahweh Shah. Yahweh Shah has not chosen many of these people to open up their understanding so that they may receive the appropriate knowledge, wisdom, and understanding of the Most High's business. And this is a prime example. It's not even worth mentioning this pastor's name, but it's some pastor out in Chicago, a mega church at that, a mega church out there in Chicago. And all of my Chicago viewers, you probably know this guy for the very fact that he out there in Chicago. But his name is irrelevant. What we're going to do is get in these scriptures. We're going to get in these scriptures. First and foremost, we're going to expose this folly that this man's talking about. And we're going to expose the folly he's talking about with Ruth and Naomi. And he goes even further in offense by trying to say that David and Nathan were lovers. This guy is completely out of there. He's a reprobate. He's a minister of Satan, transforming himself as a minister of righteousness. These types of people need to be cut off. Like, if you spreading that type of misinformation about the Most High's business, the Most High just needs to do away with you. And he's one of those people that the Most High just needs to do away with. Completely get them out of here because they're scum to the kingdom. Just get them out of here. Now, I'm going to go ahead and play this video. And for fair use purposes, we're playing this video. Fair use, fair use. This is for edification and education. Let me go ahead and play this so you all can hear this blasphemy.
Probably by people who don't even read the Bible. Number one, Ruth and Naomi. Ruth and Naomi were in a same-sex lesbian relationship. Look how quiet they got in here.
See, a defiled deceiver like this guy knows he can get away with saying such things because he's talking to an audience that don't cleave to facts. They cleave to their emotions. They don't read the Bible with a true understanding. He knows this, so that's why he can sit up here and tell these people this blasphemy.
I'm trying to sit down. But for all of you that grew up in these classes being taught to wait on your Boaz, that God is going to send Ruth her Boaz, God sent Ruth Naomi.
This man deserves to be struck down. If the Most High takes him out of here, we're seeing why. Not only does he make a false accusation that Naomi and Ruth were lovers, he goes forth to say that Naomi was given to Ruth as a marriage partner. Woe. Woe. Woe unto this man.
When you read the vows and the covenants that they made with each other, they are vows that we still use today in marriage ceremonies. She said, wherever you go, I will go. Your God will be my God. There are even references, and I don't have time to do this. We don't do this in this teaching. We have a teaching where we do break down these scriptures. But there are...
If you know anything about Ruth, Ruth was a Moabite. She was of the Gentile nations, and her husband, who was Naomi's son, died. And we're going to get into it. We're going to read the whole book of Ruth just to cut this devil to shreds. So sit tight. We're going to read the whole book of Ruth and cut this devil to shreds. Ruth was a Gentile. She was of the heathen nations, and she was married to an Israelite. Naomi's sons were Israelites. They were from the tribe of Ephraim. So what Naomi was professing here, she was professing to continue to stay within the laws, statutes, and commandments of the Most High, due to the fact that her now deceased husband was an Israelite. She wanted to continue to be within that following. She was denouncing her own customs of her people when she told Naomi this. She was cleaving. Yes, she was cleaving to the people of the covenant. Let me continue and let this devil speak so we can cut up his foolishness.
References that demonstrate that they had a sexual relationship. I'll even take it further. For all of y'all that talk about some Ruth and Boaz are the examples for single women. Ruth got Boaz drunk. Ruth got Boaz drunk, had sex with him for the sake of having a baby. And in the text, it does not say Ruth and Boaz's baby. It says Naomi's baby. Boaz was a sperm donor.
This is the devil speaking. This is the devil speaking through this man. And this man has some very inordinate tendencies himself. I wouldn't be surprised if he has an inordinate lifestyle that he practices with such a doctrine that he is spewing right now.
That's called surrogacy. Love it. I want to give another example. David and Jonathan. David and Jonathan.
So I'm going to stop right here because he's pushing the envelope. This is the part where he says that David and Jonathan were also lovers, and he's twisting up the scriptures to try to prove that blasphemous doctrine. So I'm going to stop right there. I don't want to hear nothing else from this defiled, degenerate, and minister of Hashatan. I'm done. We're going to go ahead and get into the scriptures. I'm going to start off with a few scriptures to expose the folly of this man, to cut up his foolishness of what he's telling to this unlearned congregation at this mega church out there in Chicago. We're going to go to the book of Colossians. We're going to go to the book of Colossians, chapter 2, verse 28. That's where we're going to go. Book of Colossians, chapter 2, verse 28. Excuse me, verse 8. Beware, lest any man spoil you through philosophy and vain deceit, after the tradition of men, after the rudiments of the world, and not after Mashiach. Everything this man spoke is contrary to the Most High's business. He fabricated lies using the scriptures, which many Christians do. They use the scriptures, they twist up the scriptures, and they fabricate their own doctrine out of it. Their doctrines aren't based off of truth. Their doctrine is based off however they want to see it and whatever their feelings dictate. So that's what we're seeing here with this man. Let's continue forward and slice up this damn devil, speaking this foolishness with this unlearned congregation. We're going to go to the book of Ephesians next. We're going to go to the book of Ephesians, chapter 4, verse 14. That we henceforth be no more children, tossed to and fro and carried about with every wind of doctrine, by the sleight of men and cunning craftiness, whereby they lie in wait to deceive. Now let's expose this devil for what he really is. Up here speaking this folly. We're going to the book of 2 Corinthians, chapter 11, starting at verse 13. For such are false apostles, deceitful workers, transforming themselves into the apostles of Christ. And no marvel, for Satan himself is transformed into an angel of light. Verse 15. Therefore it is no great thing if his ministers also be transformed as the ministers of righteousness, whose end shall be according to their works. I had enough of this damn devil. I'm not listening anymore to what he's saying. He pushed the envelope going to our ancient grandfather. Trying to say our ancient grandfather was a sodomite. He pushed the envelope there. But we're not having none of that because he's speaking folly and foolishness. We're going to go ahead and go to the book of Ruth. We're going to go to the book of Ruth. We're going to go to the book of Ruth, right? And I'm going to put the book of Ruth on the screen. So y'all can go to your Bibles, right? Y'all can go to your Bibles and go to this particular book. But I'm going to be reading from my Bible. I'm not going to be reading from the screen that you're looking at here.
The truth is,
So we'll just leave the screen right here. And I'm going to be reading from the book of Ruth. We're going to read the entire chapter of Ruth. So I suggest you grab your Bibles and read along. This is the book of Ruth, starting from the top. Now it came to pass in the days when the judges ruled that there was a famine in the land, and a certain man of Bethlehem, Judah, went to sojourn in the country of Moab. So a certain man went to the country of Moab. Right? He and his wife and his 2 sons. And the name of the man was Elimelech. And the name of his wife, Naomi. So Naomi indeed had a husband. They were Israelites. They were Israelites. They had 2 sons. And the name of his 2 sons, Mahlon and Chilion, Ephrathites. So they were from the tribe of Ephraim. So we know that Elimelech was from the tribe of Ephraim. They were from the northern kingdom. And they came into the country of Moab and continued there. And Elimelech, Naomi's husband, died. And she was left and her 2 sons. And they took them wives of the women of Moab. The name of the one was Orpah, and the name of the other, Ruth. So Naomi's sons made wives out of Moabite women. Right? Because they were living in the country of Moab as Israelites. So here we see that Ruth was indeed a Gentile. Continuing forward, and they took them wives of the women of Moab. The name of the one was Orpah, and the name of the other Ruth. And they dwelled there about 10 years. And Mahlon and Chilion died, also both of them. And the woman was left of her 2 sons and her husband. So Naomi was a survivor of her entire family, her entire immediate family. Then she arose with her daughters-in-law, and she might return from the country of Moab. For she had heard in the country of Moab how that Yahweh had visited his people and given them bread. Wherefore she went forth out of the place where she was, and her 2 daughters-in-law with her. And they went on the way to return unto the land of Judah. So Naomi, after her husband and her sons died, decided to return back to the promised land, right? They decided to return to Judah, to Bethlehem, Judah. So Ruth and Orpah went with her as Moabitess women. So now they're sojourning with Naomi as strangers into the land of Judah. Verse 8, and Naomi said unto her two daughters-in-law, go return each other to her mother's house. The Yahweh deal kindly with you, as ye have dealt with the dead and with me. Yahweh grant you that ye may find rest, each of you, in the house of her husband. Then she kissed them, and they lifted up their voice and wept. See, anybody that has a defiled mindset, if their mindset's defiled or they're just given over to that inordinate lifestyle, verses like this will make their mind go completely left. So that damn devil that was speaking on this matter, falsely accusing Naomi and Ruth being lovers, would have read this and took it to a sexual element and created this whole doctrine and conclusion that they were lovers. Verse 10, and they said unto her, surely we will return with thee unto thy people. They didn't want to go back to their people. They didn't want to go back to the customs and practices of the Moabites, because these are two heathen women who married Israelites, who completely forsaken their culture and their people to go in the way of Yahweh. And they were still, their hearts were still set on following Yahweh, not returning to the idols and the folly of their nation. Continuing forward, verse 11, and Naomi said, turn again, my daughters. Why will ye go with me? Are there yet any more sons in my womb, that they may be your husbands? Turn again, my daughters, go your way, for I am too old to have an husband. If I should say, I have hope, if I should have an husband also tonight, and should also bear sons, would ye tarry for them till they were grown? Would ye stay for them from having husbands? Nay, my daughters, for it grieveth me much for your sakes that the hand of Yahweh is gone out against me. And they lifted up their voice and wept again. And Orpah kissed her mother-in-law, but Ruth claved unto her and said, verse 15, and she said, behold, thy sister-in-law is gone back unto her people and unto her gods. Return thou after thy sister-in-law. So this is what set Ruth apart, and this is why the Most High has documented her in our biblical documents. This is how Ruth was documented by the Most High. She was found worthy, though she wasn't an Israelite. She was of the Moab nation, the Moabites. She chose to follow Yahweh, and she forsook her own people. She forsook the gods and the customs and the culture of her own people as an heathen. Verse 16. And Ruth said, entreat me not to leave thee, or to return from following after thee. For whither thou goest, I will go, and where thou lodgest, I will lodge. Thy people shall be my people, and thy God my God. So that old profane fool speaking that blasphemy tried to twist that up as a marriage vow. No. That was her own vow, saying that she would not serve the idol gods of her people. She said she'd rather go the way of Yahweh and in the way of the Israelites than to return back to the Moabites and their foolishness. Verse 17. Where thou diest will I die, and there will I be buried. Yahweh do so to me, and more also, if aught but death part thee and me. When she saw that she was steadfastly minded to go with her, then she left speaking unto her. So they went until they came to Bethlehem. And it came to pass, when they were come to Bethlehem, that all the city was moved about them. And they said, Is this Naomi? And she said unto them, Call me not Naomi, call me Mara. For the Almighty had dealt very bitterly with me. I went out full, and Yahweh had brought me home again, empty. Why then call me Naomi, seeing that Yahweh has testified against me, and the Almighty hath afflicted me? So Naomi is a Hebrew word for pleasant. So when Naomi said, call me Mata, that's an interpretation in the Hebrew of being bitter. Just some inside knowledge there. Verse 22. So Naomi returned, and Ruth the Moabitess, her daughter-in-law, with her, which returned out of the country of Moab. And they came to Bethlehem in the beginning of barley harvest. Chapter 2. And Naomi had a kinsman of her husband's, a mighty man of wealth, of the family of Elimelech. And his name was Boaz. And Ruth, the Moabitess, said unto Naomi, Let me now go to the field and glean ears of corn after him, in whose sight I shall find grace. And she said unto her, Go, my daughter. So what the hell was that damn devil talking about? Naomi hooked up Ruth with Boaz. So what was that damn devil talking about out there in Chicago? Everybody in that audience who stayed and listened to that were unlearned, and they're being deceived. Continuing forward. Verse 3. And she went and came and gleaned in the field after the reapers. And her hap was to light on a part of the field belonging unto Boaz, who was of the kindred of Elimelech. And behold, Boaz came from Bethlehem and said unto the reapers, Yahweh be with you. And they answered him, Yahweh bless thee. Then said Boaz unto his servant that was set over the reapers, Whose damsel is this? And the servant that was set over the reapers answered and said, It is the Moabitish damsel that came back with Naomi out of the country of Moab. So Boaz saw Naomi. He, for one, saw that she wasn't an Israelite. And for two, he had a bit of attractiveness to her as well. Like, who is this? Whose damsel is this? Who does she belong to? How is she here? She has to belong to somebody being out here. Verse 7. And she said, I pray you, let me glean and gather after the reapers among the sheaves. So she came and hath continued even from the morning until now, that she tarried a little in the house. Then said Boaz unto Ruth, Hearest thou not, my daughter? Go not to glean in another field, neither go from hence, but abide here, fast by my maidens. Let thine eyes be on the field. that they do reap, and go thou after them. Have I not charged the young men that they shall not touch thee? And when thou art athirst, go into the vessels, and drink of that which the young men have drawn. Then she fell on her face and bowed herself to the ground and said unto him, Why have I found grace in thine eyes, that thou shouldest take knowledge of me, seeing I am a stranger? So she had to question it. She really had to question the reality here. She really had to question the reality here. Here is this wealthy Israelite man basically laying out the carpet for her, letting her have access to all his resources and the part of the operation that he has going out there in that cornfield. So she had to bow herself down to him and ask, why do I receive so much favor being a Moabite? What did Boaz say? Verse 11, and Boaz answered and said unto her, It hath fully been showed me all that thou hast done unto thy mother-in-law since the death of thine husband, and how thou hast left thy father and thy mother and the land of thy nativity, and art come unto a people which thou knowest not heretofore. So, you see, it was an honorable thing that she forsook her own people to be with the Israelites. It was an honorable thing that she forsook the gods of her people to follow after the God of the Israelites. And Boaz knew that, he saw that, and he did as such. Verse 12, Yahweh will recompense thy work, and a full reward be given thee of Yahweh Elohim of Yasharal, under whose wings thou art come to trust. Then she said, Let me find favor in thy sight, my Lord, for that thou hast comforted me, and for that thou hast spoken friendly unto thine handmaid, though I be not like unto one of the handmaidens, one of thine handmaidens, excuse me. So she sees the favor she's getting, though she's not an Israelite. She sees the favor she's getting for choosing to forsake the customs, the cultures, and the gods of her people to follow the custom, the culture, and the God of Yasharala. There's a lot that can be learned by Ruth here. There's a lot that can be learned by Ruth here. Oh yeah, there's a lot that can be learned here, because everything she did, everything she did being from the heathen nations is what it takes to truly be in order with the Most High if you're a Gentile. And I'll leave it as that. Continuing forward, verse 14, and Boaz said unto her, At mealtime come thou hither, and eat of the bread, and dip thy morsel in the vinegar. And she sat beside the reapers and reached her parched corn, and she did eat, and was sufficed and left. And when she was risen up to glean, Boaz commanded his young men, saying, Let her glean even among the sheaves, and reproach her not. And let fall also some of the handfuls of purpose for her, and leave them, that she may glean them and rebuke her not. So she gleaned in the field until even, and beat out that she had gleaned. And it was about an ephah of barley. And she took it up and went into the city, and her mother-in-law saw what she had gleaned. And she brought forth and gave to her that she had reserved after she was sufficed. And her mother-in-law said unto her, what hast thou gleaned today? And where wroughtest thou? Blessed be he that Blessed be he that did take knowledge of thee. And she showed her mother-in-law with whom she had wrought, and said, the man's name with whom I have wrought today is Boaz. And Naomi said unto her daughter-in-law, blessed be he of the Lord, Yahweh, who hath not left off his kindness to the living and to the dead. And Naomi said unto her, the man is near of kin unto us, one of our next kinsmen. And Ruth, the Moabitess, said, he said unto me also, thou shalt keep fast by my young men until they have ended all my harvest. And Naomi said unto Ruth, her daughter-in-law, it is good, my daughter, that thou go out with his maidens, that they meet thee not in any other field. So she kept fast by the maidens of Boaz to glean until the end of barley harvest and of the wheat harvest, and dwelt with her mother-in-law. Nowhere in both of those two chapters before Ruth met Boaz did it say that Naomi and Ruth were in a sodomish relationship. What the hell is this devil talking about? Chapter 3. Then Naomi, her mother-in-law, said unto her, my daughter, shall I not seek rest for thee, that it may be well with thee? And now is not Boaz of our kindred, with whose maidens thou wast? Behold, he winnoweth barley tonight in the threshing floor. Wash thyself thereof, or therefore, and anoint thee, and put thine raiment upon thee, and get thee down to the floor. But make not thyself known unto the man until he shall have done eating and drinking. And it shall be, when he lieth down, that thou shalt mark the place where he shall lie. And thou shalt go in and uncover his feet and lay thee down. And he will tell thee what thou shalt do. And she said unto her, all that thou sayest unto me I will do. And she went down unto the floor and did according to all that her mother-in-law bade her. And when Boaz had eaten and drunk, and his whole salat, and his heart was merry, he went to lie down at the end of the heap of corn, and she came softly and uncovered his feet and laid her down. And it came to pass at midnight that the man was afraid and turned himself, and behold, a woman lay at his feet. And he said, who art thou? And she answered, I am Ruth, thine handmaid. Spread therefore thy skirt over thine handmaid, for thou art a near kinsman, which is also redeemer. So here's the thing. In the law, if a man has a wife, right? If a man has a wife and that man died, it was lawful for that man's brother to take that wife if they didn't have any children. That's in the Torah. So when they speak of that nearest kinsman that Naomi introduced Ruth to, of Boaz, because Boaz was the kinfolk of Naomi's husband. Naomi's husband didn't have any brothers that they mentioned, right? Or Salak, excuse me. Ruth's husband, who was Naomi's child, Naomi's son, his brother died. They both died out there in Moab. So in a perfect case scenario, if Ruth's husband's brother was still alive, she would have became the wife of his brother. But they all dead. So this was Naomi's husband's kinfolk that she introduced Ruth to. Continuing forward. Verse 10. And he said, Blessed be thou of Yahweh, my daughter, for thou hast showed more kindness in the latter end than at the beginning, inasmuch as thou followest not young men, whether poor or rich. And might I add, with that law, that was only to be done if they didn't have children. That was only to be done if they didn't have children. If the dead husband didn't have children with his wife, then his wife was to marry his brother. Therefore, the children that they produce will be his brother's children. That was the law on that. Ruth didn't have any children with Naomi's son. Neither one of Naomi's sons had children with their wives. I just wanted to add that in there if I didn't mention that in the previous explanation that I gave you according to this law. Continuing forward. And he said, Blessed be thou of Yahweh, my daughter, for thou hast showed more kindness in the latter end than at the beginning, inasmuch as thou followest not young men, whether poor or rich. And now, my daughter, fear not, I will do to thee all that thou requirest. For all the city of my people doth know that thou art a virtuous woman. And now it is true that I am thy near kinsman. Howbeit, there is a kinsman nearer than I. Tarry this night, and it shall be in the morning, that if he will perform unto thee the part of a kinsman, well, let him do the kinsman part. But if he will not do the part of a kinsman to thee, then will I do the part of a kinsman to thee, as Yahweh liveth, lie down until the morning. And she lay at his feet until the morning, and she rose up before one could know another. And he said, Let it not be known that a woman came into the floor. Also, he said, Bring the veil that thou hast upon thee, and hold it. And when she held it, he measured 6 measures of barley, and laid it on her. And she went into the city. And when she came to her mother-in-law, she said, Who art thou, my daughter? And she told her all that the man had done to her. And she said, These 6 measures of barley gave he me. For he said to me, Go not empty unto thy mother-in-law. Then said she, Sit still, my daughter, until thou know how the matter will fall. For the man will not be in rest until he have finished the thing this day. Chapter 4. This is the last chapter, and we're almost done. Then went Boaz up to the gate, and sat him down there, and behold, the kinsman of whom Boaz spoke came by, unto whom he said, Ho, such a one. Turn aside, sit down here. And he turned aside and sat down. And he took 10 men of the elders of the city and said, Sit ye down here. And they sat down. And he said unto the kinsman, Naomi, that is come again out of the country of Moab, selleth a parcel of land, which was our brother Elimelech's. And I thought to advertise thee, saying, Buy it before the inhabitants and before the elders of my people. If thou wilt redeem it, redeem it. But if thou wilt not redeem it, then tell me, that I may know. for there is none to redeem it besides thee, and I am after thee. And he said, I will redeem it. Then said Boaz, what day thou buyest the field of the hand of Naomi, thou must buy it also of Ruth, the Moabitess, the wife of the dead, to raise up the name of the dead upon his inheritance. And the kinsman said, I cannot redeem it for myself, lest I mar my own inheritance. Redeem thou my right to thyself, for I cannot redeem it. Now this was the manner in the former time in Israel concerning redeeming and concerning changing, for to conform all things. A man plucked off his shoe and gave it to his neighbor. And this was a testimony in Yasharah. Therefore the kinsman said unto Boaz, buy it for thee. So he drew off his shoe. And Boaz said unto the elders and unto all the people, ye are witnesses this day that I have bought all that was Amalek's and all that was Kalion's and Mahlon of the hand of Naomi. Moreover, Ruth, the Moabitess, the wife of Mahlon, have I purchased to be my wife, to raise up the name of the dead upon his inheritance, that the name of the dead be not cut off from among his brethren, and from the gate of his place ye are witness this day. Let's get that into a row real quick. Let's get that into a row real quick, just to support what I was saying earlier about a dead man who had a wife that didn't have children be redeemed by his brother marrying his wife. Let's get that. That'll be Deuteronomy . Here we go. Deuteronomy chapter 25, starting at verse 5. If brethren dwell together and one of them die and have no child, the wife of the dead shall not marry without unto a stranger. Her husband's brother shall go in unto her and take her to him to wife, and perform the duty of a husband's brother unto her. That's the statute that supports everything that was explained earlier in relation to this arrangement that's going on with Naomi and Naomi's father-in-law's kinsman. Continuing forward with the reading. Verse 11. And all the people that were in the gate and the elders said, we are witnesses. Yahweh make the woman that is come into thine house like Rachel and like Leah, which two did build the house of Israel. And do thou worthily in Ephratah, and be famous in Bethlehem. And let thy house be like the house of Pharez, whom Tamar bare unto Judah, of the seed which Yahweh shall give thee of this young woman. So Boaz took Ruth, and she was his wife. And when he went in unto her, Yahweh gave her conception, and she bare a son. And the woman said unto Naomi, blessed be Yahweh, which had not left thee this day without a kinsman, that his name may be famous in Yasharallah. And he shall be unto thee a restorer of thy life, and a nourisher of thine old age. For thy daughter-in-law, which loveth thee, which is better to thee than 7 sons, hath borne him. And Naomi took the child and laid it in her bosom, and became nurse unto it. And the woman, her neighbors, gave it a name, saying, there is a son born to Naomi. And they called his name Obed. He is the father of Jesse, the father of David. So with that damn devil-ass pastor out there in Chicago talking about the son that Ruth conceived from Boaz, right? When he was like, oh yeah, they called it Naomi's son. That was because the child was of her near kinsman, of her husband's near kinsman. So the bloodline was still there. The bloodline was still there. So that's why they said that. But when you have devils speak on matters of Yahweh's business like that, they twist it up and they lead astray those who are unlearned and unstable. Continuing forward to finish off this chapter in this book of Ruth. Now these are the generations of Pharez. Pharez beget Hezron, and Hezron beget Ram, and Ram beget Amminadab, and Amminadab beget Nahshon, and Nahshon beget Salmon, and Salmon beget Boaz, and Boaz beget Obed, and Obed beget Jesse, and Jesse beget David. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. So that was the entire chapter of Ruth, cutting up that nasty, blasphemous doctrine of that preacher out there in Chicago. Woe unto him, and woe unto anybody who believed anything he said and followed this man blindly. This is why it's important to study to show yourselves approved. Mashpaka. Get out of these wicked churches. May peace, serenity, and prosperity be multiplied unto you all. Shalom.